The lawyer's voice sliced through the tense silence. To his son, Richard Chukwuebuka, I bequeath the family's mansions and 5 billion naira. Richard smirked, already reveling in his inheritance. To his daughter, Rita Chukwuebuka, I bequeath 1 million naira. And my personal mobile phone. A stunned gasp filled the room. Rita's heart pounded. A phone. 1 million. Richard burst into laughter. The genius gets a relic and spare change. Rita could barely breathe. Her father had always praised her intelligence, always said she had the mind of a true leader. Then why? Why would he do this to her? Her father never acted without reason. This wasn't an insult. It was a key. Without a word, she stormed out of the office, gripping the old phone tightly in her trembling hands. Feeling on top of the world, Richard cared little about his sister's feelings or what she might do next. He wasted no time indulging in his newfound wealth, lavish cars, extravagant parties, expensive women, and wild nights at the most exclusive clubs. He surrounded himself with fake friends who only wanted a piece of his fortune, completely ignoring his sister's existence. Rita, on the other hand, drowned in sorrow. A few days later, Rita visited her father's grave, tears streaming down her face. Father, is this all I deserve? Was this the best you could do? Why would you treat me like this? You knew I always proved myself to you. Is this my reward for being a good daughter? She cried, her voice shaking. A phone and 1 million naira. That night, as she sat alone in her bedroom, she stared at the phone. It was an outdated model, one her father had refused to replace. There has to be something more, she thought. She powered it on. The home screen displayed a picture of her father smiling, as if mocking her confusion. She swiped through the apps, messages, contacts, gallery, nothing unusual. Then she noticed an unfamiliar app labeled Vault. Her pulse quickened. She tapped on it. A password prompt appeared. Her mind raced. What would Dad use? She tried his birth year. Incorrect. His favorite proverb. Incorrect. Then, on impulse, she typed, Rita. The screen flashed. The vault opened. Inside were dozens of encrypted files and financial records, secrets her father had never shared. Over the next few days, Rita meticulously decoded the files. The deeper she dug, the more she realized the sheer magnitude of her father's hidden fortune. Offshore accounts, gold reserves, cryptocurrency holdings, and even properties hidden under shell companies. This wasn't just wealth, it was power beyond anything she had imagined. One fateful evening, as she sat on her bed, scrolling through the files, her phone buzzed with an anonymous message. We see you, Rita. If you want to leave, bring your late father's phone to us. We will send you the location. Her chest tightened with fear. They knew. They had been watching her. She had little time. The message was more than a warning, it was a death sentence. She had become a target. And now, she had to decide. Would she surrender the phone and live in fear? Or would she fight back, just as her father had? The moment Rita fled her apartment, she knew she was being followed. She darted into the bustling streets of Lagos, her heart hammering in her chest. The city was alive with noise, cars honking, vendors shouting, and pedestrians weaving through traffic, but beneath the chaos, she could still hear them. Footsteps. Steady. Relentless. A black SUV screeched to a halt ahead, cutting off her path. Two men in dark suits stepped out, their faces unreadable. "Hand over the phone, and you walk away," one of them said, his voice calm yet laced with threat. Rita's mind raced. If they got the phone, she would lose everything, her inheritance, the evidence of her father's murder, and possibly even her life. She made a split-second decision. Without hesitation, she flung the phone into the open window of a passing vehicle and shouted, "Drive. Don't let them catch you." The startled driver, sensing danger, slammed his foot on the accelerator and sped off. The men lunged for Rita, but she was already moving. She tore through the alleyways, leaping over carts, pushing past startled pedestrians, and weaving through the labyrinthine streets of Lagos. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Just as she thought she had shaken them, another black car skidded into view, blocking her escape. A familiar voice called out, "Get in." She turned. Jide. Her father's former bodyguard. Rita hesitated only for a second before diving into the car. The door slammed shut, and the tire screeched as Jide floored the gas, weaving through traffic like a man possessed. Hours later, a safe house outside Lagos. Rita sat in the dimly lit room, the tension in her body refusing to ease. The driver who had unknowingly aided her escape arrived shortly after she called, handing over the phone. She thanked him, pressing a wad of cash into his palm before he disappeared into the night. Jide, leaning against the wall, folded his arms. His sharp gaze never left her. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No," Rita admitted. "I need to see a doctor. I saw you running while I was driving." "Who were those men? What do they want?" Rita studied him, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "You were my father's most loyal bodyguard. Can I trust you?" Jide's expression hardened. "Yes, you can. Now tell me, who are they, and what do they want?" Rita gripped the phone tighter. "They want my father's phone." Jide exhaled sharply, his jaw tightening. "You have no idea what you're up against," he muttered, locking the doors. His voice dropped to a grave whisper. "Your father's enemies. They won't stop until they have that phone." "But why?" Rita demanded. Jide's gaze darkened. "Because this phone isn't just worth money, it holds power. Every dirty deal, every bribe, every offshore transaction your father ever documented is inside that device. It's leverage against the most dangerous men in Nigeria." A chill ran down Rita's spine. Her father had died protecting this phone. And now, it was up to her to survive, and to use it wisely. She turned to Jide, her expression resolute. "Then we fight." For the first time, Rita wasn't just a billionaire's daughter. She was the heir to a war. Meanwhile, Richard's downfall hits. Richard staggered into a nightclub, drowning in whiskey and regret. Hours earlier, in a drunken haze, he had unknowingly signed a contract handed to him by smooth-talking scammers, men who had promised him a lucrative business deal that never existed. By the time he sobered up, his accounts had been wiped clean. Panic clawed at his chest. He called his lawyers, his bankers, anyone who could help him. But no one answered. The associates who had once worshipped him were gone. The women who had thrown themselves at him had vanished. Desperation led him to a private casino in Ekoi. Maybe, just maybe, he could win back some of what he had lost. Instead, he lost everything. An hour later, he stumbled out into the cold night air, his world in ruins. A sleek black car pulled up beside him. The tinted window slid down, revealing a familiar face. Emeka, the vulture. Richard's stomach twisted. Mr. Richard, Emeka greeted smoothly, his grin sharp as a knife. It seems you've had a rough few days. Richard scowled. What do you want? Emeka's smile widened. Not much. Just a little cooperation. Richard hesitated. He knew his father had dealings with dangerous men. Emeka was one of them. I have nothing to offer you, Richard muttered. Oh, but you do. Emeka leaned closer. Your sister has something that belongs to me. A phone. Richard stiffened. Help me get it, Emeka continued, and I'll make sure you're rich again. Richard hesitated. He had lost everything. If betraying Rita was the price to reclaim his fortune, he was willing to pay it. While Richard and Emeka plotted, Rita and Jide made their move. Using an anonymous email, they leaked one of the files from her father's phone, a document exposing a powerful senator's billion-dollar money laundering scheme. The news spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. The senator denied everything, but the evidence was airtight. More importantly, the leak sent a message to those hunting Rita. She had the power to destroy them. Hours later, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You've made a mistake. Give us the phone, or you won't live to see tomorrow. Jide read the message over her shoulder. His expression turned grim. They're getting desperate. Rita smirked. Good. But what she didn't know was that the real betrayal was already in motion. Now the big question. Will Richard betray his own sister? Will Emeka, the vulture, keep to his own bargain to make Richard rich again if he conquers Rita? Does Richard have another plan on revenging his father's death? Or is he playing along with Emeka, the vulture, just to protect his sister from the danger ahead? There can only be one answer. Watch out for Heir to War Part 3.